And all my life, I was doing it this other way.
And you know what, though? I think we get away from the fact that art can be anything you want it to be, but only until you explore that and then break it, that you come up with something new, and then that's what's new. And I give respect to any artist that's in the past who's dead and alive, and especially dead ones. They're not going to create anything else. But we get so caught up, and it's like, oh, there was no one like that. There was no one like that. But there was an element of what made them great is that they've turned something around.
Just turned it.
And that's the part we need to remember now, so that the artists today can also not just keep copying and saying this is that kind of era, this is that kind of category, this is that kind of style. We'll try something else. Turn it, and then you come up with your own stuff, and now you can set your path however you want it, because there should be no constraints and no rules about this.
Oh man,
it should not.
And that's when I started, because I really actually, for some bizarre reason, I started getting into art history because I was trying to figure out where I fit in. Mm-hmm. That was my whole thing. My art teachers loved me because I wasn't necessarily questioned. I just be like, well, what's happening over here at the same time this is happening? And then you really start to realize a lot of stuff, man. It's almost like, in a way, you start to get this feeling like no matter what you do, the way the art system is set right now, it's in charge by people who ain't gonna maybe never respect you ever. Mm-hmm. Yeah. So you have to actually say, the hell with it.
Exactly, yes. That's right. Because they're stuck.
Now I'm actually freer to do anything.
Because they're stuck in those categories. They're stuck in, and I hated that people would walk into our shop, Vantage Point, a long time ago, and Yada would have some artwork on the wall. And some kid walked in one day, and he was young, man. He was 25, maybe. And he said, oh, this looks like some African contemporary. And then Yada and I looked at each other and we said, that shit's a painting. It's like, don't try to label it and then flip it into a lane.
That's right.
Because then now you're stuck there and you don't see the art for the art of it.
Right.
And of course, because you don't fit your work in a certain lane, now you're not going to get the accolades, the awards, exhibits, and so on. It's like, but that's because I did not grow up like that. We was doing some shit because I wanted to do some shit.
And part of our art was kind of like survival. Yeah. I was the graffiti artist, and it's like, I remember all these dudes getting beat up. They was waiting. Listen, it was like 6 guys on each side. You gotta walk through the hall. You coming through, they beat you up. And here comes me, and I was 5'1" at the time.
You're 5'2" now.
No, I ain't. And I'm walking through, and they was getting ready, and I was like, I just have to fight and get beat up. And it was like, nah, the graffiti artist. Hey, where my picture at? I was like, yeah, it's coming. Yeah, picture. High five and go right through. Like, almost died on that one. Damn. So it's like they don't get none of that. You know what I mean? Coming through, the cops looking for you because they're like, "Who's the graffiti?" And you know that happening now, but it's
and I don't think that Michelangelo and all them cats way back, Renaissance, they did not start painting or creating and saying, I want to create a category that people are going to study. They just created.
But
they drew. They taxed their skills. They challenged themselves.
You don't even know if they even call themselves an artist, believe it or not. They were just creative. That's why he has mathematical equations. He's got sculpture. He's got plans.
Yeah.
It's like,
how much shit can I put in here?
And that's what we have, but that's what art school and schools do to you. Mm-hmm. That's what I had to realize. Now, coming from I went to 2 art schools, remember?
Yeah, so we don't get to that. We get into a whole philosophical stuff and I got sidetracked from your life story. I think it all goes together.
It's all part of it. It all goes together.
Yeah, and in high school I was one of the people that fighting. I was one of the fighters.
Okay.
And I like to fight in those days. And but that's how I grew up in East LA. That's how it was.
What do you think?
Right.
I knew all the damn gladiators.
Dudes fight. That's how we do. But I was the only artist. So Muggs always wanted to connect with me and be around me or see my work.
Don't you think that's why you still standing here?
Yeah, I think so.
Like, it's the only difference between. I'm like, well, what made me different than the 95% of the other dudes I know who all got locked up?
Yes, locked up, and buried, disabled,
gone. That's right.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Gang warfare, the drugs,
but they want to label us and be like, your art is nothing. My art kept me alive.
That saved me. Yeah, that's what Wade says all the time. Wade Harrison from Toledo, Ohio. That's the only thing that allowed him to get out of his
art kept me alive. I don't know what you're talking about.
Yeah. It goes everything: social, economic, financial, and hip hop is part of your story. It's part of your art. It's who you are.
You can try to run, but you can't hide from your past.
So you starting to flip the idea of what art is and what your art is. And the first time you went to college, and so did you? While all along you're exploring this, is it in your mind to make money with your art? Were you selling pieces?
Well,
Were you trying to?
This is what's funny. My senior year of the first art school, we went to the Society Illustrators, New York. We took a trip there. And then at the same trip, we went to, because I was also learning to be a scenic artist, where you do all the paintings for backdrops for movies.
Oh, nice.
Yeah. Because the same professor who brought us to the Society Illustrators, he also worked on a lot of Spike Lee stuff and a lot of Hollywood stuff. He was in the union.
Oh, okay.
So we went there. We went to the Society Illustrators. I seen one of my professors there. I don't know. I guess they have a restaurant in there or something. So he's eating, and he laughs with us. He plays around with us. It's a school. We're a bunch of eccentric kids from the hood. That's what we were, all of them. But we were really unique and actually super talented. It was just a bunch of you and me. Imagine a whole school of guys like us.
That was just
it'll never happen again because the school actually closed down 2 years after I left. Just like the other school I went to 2 years after I left got bought out by someone else. Gone.
That's really we'll get to that story soon.
But so we get there and he acts like he doesn't even know us. And we're like, oh snap, like, because we're actually taking the tour in the side. He's eating a steak, and we're like, "Hey, Mister," I even forgot his name. Old, everybody was old in my old school, which was great because they taught us all the old school ways, which is actually awesome compared to the newer school. But and I was like, wow, like he really doesn't act like he knows us at all, but it's his whole class is here. And then we're looking at the walls and the way the people are talking to us, they're kind of looking down at us. And my friend Brian, I told you, my friend Brian, who we were the best artists in high school. We went to that college together. But he was already turned to a Rasta. His art was really getting super progressive. Like, it was just a dynamic painter. I remember he was like, I don't want this life. He was like, if this is what it's about.
It goes,
So, and that affected me. I was like, I do want this life. I do want to be a illustrator. But God, I don't want to go through this.
Yeah.
And then when we went to the union for the scenic designers and painters and artists, it was even worse. Because my professor, what he did, let me tell you what he did. He used us as a way to ask them hard questions that he was afraid to ask. So he told us, ask this and ask that. So we were like, well, how many black people, black and Latinos, are in the whole scenic design thing in New York? He was like, and the guy got red. And he was like, about 4. And we were like, I don't know how many. He was like, about 3,000. I was like, 4? Yeah. You know how many of us are talented? 4, that's it? Yeah. So I already knew my battle was going to be something crazy. Like, the rest of my life.
If that's what you wanted, you're going to have to fight.
But if you wouldn't, but if you don't want it no more, but you've been trained to be that, that's where the mental chaos comes from.
Yeah.
I trained to be an illustrator, trained to be a painter. I was like, what's the difference between the two? There is a difference. And it's funny, at the end of the day, I didn't want none of it. I really didn't. I was like, I don't know what's going to happen. I got all this skill. I don't know what the hell is going to happen to me.
So were you considering being a cashier at
nope.
at a gas station
nope.
then, or anything like that?
Nope.
What was in your mind?
I said, I'm just going to do art for who wants it and keep going. And you know,
and who do you think
fall.
And who do you think would want it?
Like, this is what's funny. Mm-hmm. I just didn't understand. Okay, you know, I study illustration. Mm-hmm. Try to get myself to be a viable. I understand the concept of what it is to be an illustrator, mm-hmm. but when it's time, it's just when it's brown, you're looked down upon. I don't know. I can't understand that. Like, illustration is supposed to be just marketing. You're just a human being. You're just mm-hmm. painting a human being. But unless you're doing black subjects or something, like, it can't be two brown people toasting. You know, it just be illustration. Like, it has to be Eurocentric. Mm-hmm. It has to be. Like, I don't think you understand that.
Is that because that's the mainstream that's designed to attract? And it's not really there to advertise anything to our people.
Exactly. And yet, if you just look at the sheer numbers, I'm like, what is mainstream? What is it?
Right.
You know what I mean? Like,
of course.
If you even think of television, the biggest viewers of television now, mm-hmm. is Black Latino. Mm-hmm. But marketing still, no matter what, yeah. They're like, we're not gonna do it.
Yeah, and even in the Spanish shows, the ones on the TV are white looking. They speak Spanish. They come from our countries, but they're still white.
I realized, man, that we are really in a very colonialist system. Mm-hmm. Still, no matter what. And then it just blew my mind. But I was like, I'm not gonna stop doing what I'm doing. Right. So, but what I did want to do is change. I wanted more technology in it. Mm-hmm. You know, I went to an old school, 105-year-old school. Mm-hmm. Everybody was about 60 years old. They probably were retired and working there. And so I had all the old school talent, but everything had started hitting over in computers. And even the certain jobs I was doing, they would now start to, even though I have all the illustration skill, they're like, well, it needs to have 20. They have these things like, you need 20% of illustration, of computer knowledge. I'm like, what does that mean?
20%?
Yeah, exactly. I'm like, where do you even get that ratio? What are you talking about?
So 20% of an hour is like
you need to have 20% illustration of computer skills. So I felt that it was just another way to kind of like freeze you out.
That's 12 minutes per hour. Like, you gotta use a computer.
Yeah.
Every hour.
I said, I got you. So the next school I went to.
So hold on.
Oh yeah.
All right. So you're gonna define what is illustration and what is painting.
Well, this is what happened. Mm-hmm. I was just doing art for people. Mm-hmm. I was actually pretty comfortable because I was starting to be known, and I started doing these paintings, elaborate paintings. You see customers. And then some of my friends went back to school or still in school or going to school, so I would do shows at Rutgers University, do shows in a couple of these places, and that's where I started getting known just by this guy who's kind of doing paintings that are using, I want to say Afrocentric, but it was like really like global, kind of like a global feel, and with the emphasis on Africa.
Yeah.
And the emphasis on the antiquity of our people, whether it be the temples, the Aztec temples, or whether it be, you know what I mean, things that are happening, because we dominated history, and yet we're gone, and we don't have any ground for moving forward. Like, no matter what, even how me and you were talking, we're speaking in English. Mm-hmm. And we are still looking to Europe because we're speaking in English. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? And it's still, even though we're sitting in this room, it's still bigging up Europe. Yeah. So I was like, I need to do some type of symbols and something that no speech, no nothing, and it's looking to the past, it's looking to the future at the same time. And that's when I started putting that in my paintings, and it started getting noticed until I actually won a grant. I won a $7,000 grant, and then I won a spot in the museum, the main museum in Trenton, New Jersey, the main museum of New Jersey for art. And that's when I realized, like, maybe this is the path that I'm supposed to be. Like, that was like,
set your own.
That was validation for me.